I did a little fire in the fire pit out back tonight, earlier after dinner, and it got me to thinking about how Dungeons and Dragons and all these other great role playing games are, in a small way, kind of like our modern version of telling a story around the campfire. And I feel on a certain level like this is we're like tapping into mythology on some really profound level. And I just want to riff on this tonight and sort of see where these thoughts take us. Before I get into that, let me just say this. Some of you may know, and some of you may not. I currently am living on the Atlantic coast of Florida. And of course, most of you probably know that there's a hurricane knocking on our door. And so there may be some crazy weather over the next couple days. Who knows if I'll have power, who knows if the cell phone reception will work, and who knows if we'll have internet and all of that good stuff. So I guarantee you I will be safe and taken care of. I'll take care of, my family and all that. On another level, I'm going to do my best to make sure that the D&Dailies are still posted every day. I'm going to try to maybe front load one or two and have some in the can, as they say, so that hopefully the D&Dailies will continue through 365 without a hiccup. Well, okay, without any more hiccups. We had one where a video didn't post correctly one time. It was recorded and uploaded, but it wasn't changed from private to public. So that happened once. I'm going to try to avoid that again and try to keep this going. However, that being said, the caveat is, hey man, I'm human and I may miss a day. So stay with me. All right, let's get back to mythology. Here we go with mythology and modern day storytelling. I guess what's really fascinating me, what was kind of in my mind was like, staring into the campfire, although it's not really a campfire, it's in my backyard and so forth. I was thinking about how when we were tribal, when all humanity was living as like tribal nomads and such, and of course there are still some on the planet that live that way, but by and large we're all modernly civilized now, but our ancestors weren't. And for at least probably 50,000 years, I would guess maybe way more than that, maybe more like 100,000 or more years, humanity passed on knowledge and wisdom through spoken word, through stories. The storyteller of the tribe or the pack or the family was, kind of a place of like a position of esteem, was a position of some authority and some and respect, of course, and probably a little bit of fear. Because if you were gifted, if you were a skilled storyteller, you could not only move the people you were telling the stories to, but you would enrapture them. You would almost ensorcel them with your words. You could say you could if think about when you've been to an amazing concert or an incredible speech or some other storytelling. In our modern world, of course, we do these YouTube videos and movies and things like this, and theater and so forth. And think about how if it's truly engaging, if it's someone who has the ability to absolutely capture your attention, you almost lose track of time and space and your current reality. And you're like transported to another world. And don't you find that on some level a really good D&D game does exactly that? Like, if you have a good DM, or even if you have just a mediocre DM, a moderately good DM, and you have a couple of good players at the table, there are times during a game where we can get like so caught up in what's happening, we almost lose track of everything else going on around us. We forget about our bills and our jobs and even our friends and family, our other friends and family to some degree, because we're so, entranced, we're so engaged in the moment of the game. And on another level, we're telling stories to each other. We're creating. We're not even sharing myths. We're not telling stories about things that happened. I mean, I guess if you're talking about your backstory, you sort of are. But in the midst of the game, we're creating these heroic myths. I mean, think about it. If you're playing D&D, you're generally speaking playing some kind of a hero, either a heroic warrior or a spell slinger or a holy man or woman. Or, on some level, you're playing someone who is superhuman. And if you're playing a game like Marvel Superheroes or something along those lines, or any of the other sort of next level kind of thing, even if it's like things like cyborgs and cybernetics and sci-fi stuff, we're creating these stories together whereby we're creating like legendary heroes and legendary stories, even if it's just in our group. Our modern day D&D groups are essentially like a tribe. I mean, think about it. We have a tribal leader, a chieftain, that we call them the dungeon master or the game master. We have the group. We even generally sit around a table. Maybe it's a rectangular table, but we still say we're sitting around the table, just like we sit around a campfire and tell stories around a campfire. And we are telling stories around a Dungeons and Dragons table. And even if we're playing these games through Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or some other virtual tabletop, we're still gathering together with our trusted friends, let's say, companions, and telling stories. And sometimes the stories capture our hearts and captivate our imagination, and they can carry the weight that any good myth or any good legend throughout time may have. There are stories that I still tell about characters I imagined, created, and told stories about 20, 30 years ago. That's incredible. Those characters on some level are still alive in my thoughts and my memory. Those legendary heroes are somehow sort of a part of my mythology on some level. Just like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or any of the other great modern stories out there, Harry Potter and all those other great stories. Just like those are becoming our modern mythology, I would venture to argue that so are our D&D games. I mean, I'm a critter. I love Vox Machina. I love the Mighty Nine. I mean, Grog and Keyleth and Scanlan and the rest, and Caleb and Beauregard, and all of these characters, they are legendary. I mean, we call it the legend of Vox Machina, right? I mean, these are modern day myths that we're creating together. And that just... I'm just amazed. I'm mystified. I'm amazed by it. I think this is just a DnDaily. This is just me sharing my thoughts as they come up to me. It's not scripted. It's not... It's sometimes it's not even really thought of much ahead of time, but I try to come up with fresh ideas and topics every day based on what's in my mind and what's in my experience and what I hear in the community. I think this topic is really near and dear to my heart, So I'm probably, I can't tell you when, but I think I'm going to go ahead and put together something a lot more in depth around how Dungeons and Dragons is creating personal mythology. Because I think that's what it's doing. And I would love to hear your stories. I would love to hear your thoughts about this. Are you creating legends and myths at your table? Tell me all about them in the comments below. And come on back tomorrow for more interesting stories around the digital campfire. I'll see you at the table someday. Keep rolling 20s, and remember, it's your game, play your way.